I'm Joni Patry, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I want to talk about Saturn. And as Saturn transits through your chart, what opportunities it can bring and what problems it can bring. Because you know, as Jupiter is the great benefic bringing opportunities, Saturn usually causes constriction, delays, setbacks, and endings. So Saturn is not necessarily the planet that we look for in a chart in terms of finding joy and happiness. But one thing about Saturn is we have to have Saturn because it gives discipline, structure, and focus. And we have to have these things to stay together in this world. So although Jupiter can be the big party, we can't get anything done when we're always at that party. We have to go to work. And that's what Saturn's all about, doing the work. And therefore, Saturn actually gives us our greatest rewards because Saturn is all about what you give, what you put into something, you will get out of it. And therefore, if you don't put in the work, you're not going to get anything back. So Saturn gives us our just rewards. And Saturn is all about growth. Saturn, you see, rules maturity. It rules wisdom. And the only way we come to true wisdom is through maturity and growth. And by the time you're older, old age, if you've done the way, if you have really processed your life in accordance to the laws of Saturn, you will have beautiful rewards because Saturn does give the most potent and powerful and best rewards because it's what you have worked for. When you work for something, you appreciate it. And when you reach your level of wisdom from the lessons that life's lessons, as we grow older, you appreciate and understand things that there's no way you could understand unless you've been there and done that. That's Saturn. So as Saturn transits through the chart, it will stay in a sign for 2.5 years. So it really makes its presence known in whatever house it is transiting in. So let's go through all the houses to get a better feel of what Saturn can bring and express to us. So as Saturn's in the first house, Saturn is responsibility. So when it's in the first house, you feel like there's a heavy responsibility that you're having to do. You're having to take care of. And with it in the first house, you're tired. You can be exhausted because this is your physical being, and Saturn takes its toll. It's weighty, it's heavy. The weight of the world is on your shoulders. You're having to really work to keep things together, and it's exhausting when Saturn's in the first house. So you may not feel like you look so good because the first house is our physical body. You feel tired, you look more tired because you've got to work harder when Saturn's in the first house. And for those that are born with Saturn in the first house, they always feel responsible for everyone else in their life and in the world. So Saturn in the first house, because it's going to be aspecting the 7th, can have take its toll on relationships. And Saturn, remember this, wherever it is in a chart, will be aspecting 3 houses from itself and 10 houses from itself. So, for example, when it's in the first house, it is aspecting the 3rd by its full 3rd aspect, which gives 100%. It's like it's in the 3rd, as well as the 10th house, because that's 10 houses from the 1st. So those are going to be the houses that are affected by Saturn when it is in the first house. So as Saturn transits your 2nd house, there can be restrictions financially. You've got to start consolidating, bringing things together. You can't be spending lavishly when Saturn's transiting the 2nd house. But through hard work and diligence, you will make money. It sets things up where you will do very, very well, because remember, Saturn is the hard work that gives the results. So it's all about your financial situations and consolidating and bringing things together financially as Saturn transits the second house. In the second, remember, from all these houses, it will be aspecting 3 placements from itself and 10 placements from itself. But Saturn in the second's all about your finances, bringing that together, consolidating, organizing. Saturn is the great organizer. So you're going to have to organize and get a better sense of your financial situations while Saturn's in your second house. Saturn in the third house, you may not be as close to your brothers or sisters. You may have arguments. Things could fall apart. But you may even be responsible to take care of one of them. Something comes together where you've got to communicate better with them, because it seems like you're going to want to be cut off. You're going to want to distance yourself. And Saturn in the third house, remember, this is about education and learning. You might find that school classes are harder during this time. This is not the best time for you in accordance to learning, education. But it doesn't mean that you're not going to school. It just means it's tougher, it's harder. But what you get out of it is far greater. So you got to work harder when Saturn's in the third house with education and learning. Also, you may find that some of your trips may be delayed. You're not going to be traveling as much with Saturn in the third house. Or if you have to travel, you're going to dread it. It's not the thing you want to do. You want to pull back. So when Saturn transits your fourth house, realize family members, problems. You may be responsible to take care of others, such as your mother, because the fourth house is generally the mother, your home, your family, dealings with the past. Things will come up. You've got to be responsible for and take care of these things. You may not be happy with where you're living, because Saturn in the fourth house means it dredges up some problems. Things can even break on your property, in your home. But you're just not as content as you once were when Saturn's in the fourth house. Things in the house are bothering you. Maybe you don't like where you're living as much. You're having issues and problems with the family. You're having issues and problems with real estate, property, or land. That's when Saturn's transiting the fourth house. So when Saturn transits your fifth house, you will find that you're more responsible for things, particularly around children. And maybe even there may be a new child come into your life that you didn't expect to have this new responsibility. Or there could be problems with your children. They may need more attention. They may need you to help them more, to come forth and be aware of what problems that they're having and help more. Saturn in the fifth house can mean you're more responsible for things such as children, but also you're not as creative. You know, sometimes you feel blocked within the realm of your creative forces and what it is you want to do. You become more serious-minded because the fifth house is the mind. So there's instances where you're more solemn, you're more serious. You're not ready to go out and have fun and excitement or to go out on a date, because Saturn makes you more serious about these things and it makes you want to withdraw more so from these kind of activities. So when Saturn goes into your sixth house, you got to watch your health, because you're more tired, you're exhausted, you work harder, you're stressed out from work. You have more responsibilities, and people that you work with, they may not show up, or they expect you to do all the work. And if you have employees, they may quit right when you need them, because Saturn will cause setbacks, delays, and problems. And this is in the area of work. And maybe it's a time you're forced to start that new diet, or stop some of the bad habits. It's not a lot of fun because Saturn makes you serious. Maybe you have some health issues that you realize you can't get away with doing the things you used to do. It's time for a change when Saturn transits in the 6th house, but it can cause some health issues and problems. Your resistance and your immune system can be weakened when Saturn's in the 6th house. And if you have a pet, an ill pet, this could be the time of passing of a favorite pet when Saturn transits in the 6th house. You see, Saturn will take away, whereas Jupiter will give. Saturn going through the 7th house. You know, many Vedic astrologers say that you need both Jupiter and Saturn's aspect to the 7th house to strongly predict marriage. So it's not always that Saturn's in the 7th house is going to be an issue and problem for relationships. But it means you got to get serious. You got to make a commitment. That's what Saturn's all about. In the 7th house, you make that final commitment to be responsible to marriage and relationships. And Saturn in the 7th house can be good for business because it is the 10th from the 10th, but Saturn there will represent that you get serious and you work harder, okay, in terms of business. And sometimes if relationships are on thin ice, Saturn could cause the break. Because Saturn will bring up the truth and the reality of things. Saturn is reality. And if you've been in denial or if a relationship is touchy, things could happen that break it up. That's what Saturn in the 7th house can do. So Saturn, as it transits through your 8th house, can bring around death of people, family members, and if there is such an inheritance, you may not get as much as you expected. And this is a time that things have to be sorted out in terms of inheritances, in terms of taxes, in terms of money that's shared with other people, insurance policies. These are all 8th house matters. Plus, Saturn in the 8th house could drudge up some old feelings from the past that you've got to attest to, that you've got to recognize and heal as it transits this 8th house. As Saturn transits the 9th house, there can be some issues or problems for your father. And as it transits the 9th house, there could be more difficulty in school. School gets harder, the classes get more difficult, and you may have problems with your professor. 9th house is higher education, and your spiritual beliefs will be tested. You will start to realize certain things. 9th house is our beliefs in spirituality, and Saturn there can sometimes make someone cynical and sometimes look at religion or spirituality in the way that they see people in so much hypocrisy. Because Saturn brings the truth and the realness. If you have been in a delusional state about anything, Saturn wakes you up. This is what's real, and you've got to be realistic. Saturn goes into your 10th house. Actually, Saturn does well in the 10th house, but it does mean you're going to work harder, and it might probably mean you could change jobs. If you don't follow the rules, you could lose your job. You got to follow the rules with Saturn. Saturn is the one that sets the rules. So you better be nice to your boss or you could be out of there. But maybe that's a good thing because sometimes Saturn will bring things about that could change things ultimately that may seem like the worst thing ever, but is actually a blessing in disguise. That's Saturn. So Saturn, as it transits into the 11th house, you may find that the friends that you used to be close to, you're not close to anymore. There's breakups in friendships. And when Saturn's in the 11th house, it could make you feel like you want to be more alone. But arguments with friends, arguments with older siblings could come about, disagreements, setbacks, delays, problems. endings. The 11th house is sometimes seen as our hopes, our wishes, our dreams. And with Saturn being the realist, sometimes you feel like, well, maybe I'm not being realistic about my goals. Saturn will have you reassess these things. But I will say many friends will fall away and you will feel alone as Saturn transits the 11th house. But that's only in preparation to opening the door for new friends down the road that will come in later. Now, as Saturn transits in the 12th house, you're going to find that this is a time for endings, old responsibilities. Things happen that change your life when Saturn's transiting your 12th house. So many endings, retirement. One thing about Saturn in the 12th house is you're going to find you don't sleep very well because this is a time you worry about things. The 12th house is sleep. You wake up, you can't go to sleep, you're worried because you know things are about to end. And many things do end because this is the last and final house. It deals with endings and many things do end because, remember, Saturn is the realist. It will wake you up to what is real and what is not real. So you're going to find many revelations that are not so pleasant. And sometimes people and situations from your past will resurface that need to be healed. So this is Saturn in the 12th house. And as Saturn goes through your entire chart, it'll take approximately 30 years, 27, 28 to 30 years. And this is the evolution of our soul as Saturn transits through our lives, waking us up to what's real and giving us the discipline to organize, structure, bring the greatest rewards in our lives through the hard work that Saturn forces us to do in our lives. So with that, I'd like to close. If you would like more information about Vedic astrology or you would like to learn Vedic astrology, go to my university, which is University of Vedic Astrology.com. And if you would like a reading or to learn more information about me, you can always go to my website, which is galacticcenter.org. Thank you.